But in people pleasing, you have to look and see who you're putting on pedestals. And then you have to question yourself and first ask yourself, am I deserving to be on that same pedestal that I put people on? Most times you're probably going to tell yourself that you're not deserving to be on that pedestal. You need to ask yourself why you're not deserving to be on that pedestal. Why is this person more deserving to be on this pedestal than me? There's something you're comparing yourself to, or there's something that you're fearing. Also in people pleasing, when we're trying to break away or dismantle the ideal or the notion of people pleasing, what you have to do is start to ask yourself, what am I sacrificing to keep these people happy? Most times the sacrifices that you're making within yourself are the best things that you value within yourself. They're the strengths that you see as weaknesses in yourself. Most times you even sacrifice your happiness to make other people happy. But will these people do the same thing for you? And is it reciprocated, right? Most times reciprocity is absent in people pleasing. We're giving a lot more than it is that we're receiving. You are deserving to receive exactly what it is that you desire to receive, but you have to affirm yourself enough to where you can start operating in that belief instead of the negative ones that you have.
Hey ladies, I'm Tiffany Celeste. Welcome back to my channel. So we think that people pleasing is an act of love and kindness, but if we're really being honest, when you're constantly overgiving to appease other people, what you're really doing is called self-abandonment. When you keep putting others ahead of yourself, you're setting yourself up to lose in the race of your own happiness and peace. People pleasers always finish last because they're always putting other people first at their own detriment. People pleasing will cause you to be taken advantage of, and you have to stop being overly friendly to prove to people that you are a good person, okay? When you give off this like me energy, it comes across as desperate, or people will sense a weakness in you, the weakness being the need for approval. People pleasing might feel like the right thing to do. It makes you feel needed, loved, and validated. But in the end, it's a trap. People pleasing robs you of your voice, your autonomy, and your time. When you're constantly trying to appease other people and fill their cup, you're leaving your own cup bone dry. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful to care for others, but you can't give from an empty cup. And you have to ask yourself, if my cup is empty, who's going to pour into me? And that's the thing about people pleasing. It takes more than it gives. It makes you a prisoner of other people's expectations. You start living for their approval, their happiness, and their validation. You don't need to convince people to like you. Your value is not up for negotiation. And this message is for me too. I am a recovering people pleaser. This used to be me, especially in romantic relationships. I was the queen at anticipating my partner's needs and providing what they needed before they even had to ask. But I remember constantly feeling drained and depleted because that effort and energy was never reciprocated back to me. And I became resentful, but the thing is, they never asked for any of the things I was providing. I realize now I was auditioning in hopes that they would see my good deeds and view me as a high value woman. And that's a hard pill to swallow when you discover you contributed to your own downfall. I thought by keeping them happy, I was securing the relationship, but in reality, I was teaching them that my needs didn't matter. And baby, when you teach people to treat you in that way, don't be surprised when they learn the lesson well. A lot of us think if we are good to other people, they will be good to us. Wrong. But let's get into the rest of the video so we can learn more about people pleasing and how to get out of the trap of people pleasing, and stay into the end, and I'll be back with additional commentary and points.
What made you become a people pleaser? You wired that way, or is that a trauma response?
For sure, trauma response. I had to go all the way back to where it started, and it started in my household. And it's rooted in wanting to be liked and not ruffling feathers and making sure that everybody happy. Like, you like me.
Yeah.
You know, it's rooted in wanting to have validation and be liked.
I feel that. I have been, is a people pleaser.
Yeah.
All of those things. I can't tell if it's about being liked or trying to manipulate belonging.
Explain that.
So I cannot tell if I am doing it because I want people to like me or if I am so desperate for a sense of belonging that I manipulate myself or the situation in order to have a sense of belonging.
Wow.
I think sometimes what we're calling is I want to be liked is really I want to feel like I belong somewhere. And
That's
so
deep.
whatever music I need to listen to or not listen to, whatever actions I need to take or not need to take, I'm willing to do that because at the core, I'm looking for a sense of belonging.
Put this in your notes. People pleasers suffer abuse from the very people they're trying to assist. Because when you put them before you, you just betrayed you. You told you was gonna do better this year, but because you're trying to satisfy them, you betrayed the promise you made to yourself to keep them happy. Maybe you are as mad as you are at them because you don't even realize you're secretly mad at yourself because you ain't doing to yourself what you promised yourself you would do. But you got all the energy for people, but ain't got no energy left for you. So how about for the next 4 months, you be to you what you been to them. The problem ain't that I can be that to you. Who gonna be it? But since won't nobody be it to me, I'll just be it to myself. And the folk who call you selfish are just the people who don't like the fact they can't benefit from all you've been doing. If I've been holding it down for you all this time, you should be happy. I'm taking time to do something for me because people pleasing is the ultimate betrayal of self.
You would rather disappoint yourself than to disappoint someone else. And that's how you know you have a people-pleasing mentality because you would rather let yourself down and let yourself go as opposed to letting someone else down. But then who you show up to do that work as someone who's disappointed because they betrayed themselves is a disservice to the work in their relationships that you're serving.
More people really need to know this, so I'm going to get straight to the point. People pleasing is a form of control. When we people please, we're trying to make other people like us by presenting and acting in a certain way, even when it's not most authentic to who we really are. We're trying to control how they perceive us, how they feel about us. And it's natural to want to be liked and perceived in a good, genuine way, right? But people pleasing is not the way to do it. So here's what I would do as a psychotherapist instead. The first thing is to recognize that you actually have a choice. If you've identified as being a people pleaser for a number of years, you may see it as some automatic thing that you cannot stop doing. Awareness is the first step towards making that change. The next thing is to set healthy boundaries. I go over this more in my Abundant Mental Health ebook that you can grab at the top of my page, but think of boundaries as an outward expression of self-love. Boundaries are just limits that we set with ourselves and other people based off of what's important to us. The number one thing that should be important to you is yourself, by the way.
You want to know something interesting about people pleasing? People pleasing isn't about pleasing other people at all. You want to know what people pleasing is really about? It's about your inability to feel uncomfortable, normal emotions. I used to struggle with people pleasing. I was a yes person. I would scan the environment. I put everybody else first. I was constantly anticipating everybody else's needs. And the way that I broke the habit is realizing that it's possible to be a really good person and put yourself first. But you can only do that if you are able to tolerate the feelings of guilt or sadness or somebody else's disappointment. So you just got to practice it, and then you'll no longer be a people pleaser. And so here's how you do it. The next time somebody asks you to do something and you don't want to do it, say no. And then let the feelings rise up, let them be disappointed, wait about 90 seconds, the whole thing passes, and you, my friend, will have just broken the habit of people pleasing. You would have felt the emotions you were avoiding, and that's the skill that you need to take control of your life.
7 signs you're a people pleaser. Number 7, you have a strong fear of disappointing or upsetting others. This makes it hard for you to say no, even when you know that saying yes is gonna hurt you. Number 6, you pretend to agree with everyone. You do not vocalize your true opinions in fear of disapproval or rejection. Number 5, you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Every inch of your body is telling you not to set a boundary. This resistance happens as a result of the fear that you have of the consequences of setting boundaries. Number 4, you apologize even when it is not your fault. This is driven by your desire to reduce conflict but it ends up hurting your self-esteem in the process. Number 3, you never have time for yourself. Almost everything you do is geared towards helping others achieve their goals, not yours. This leaves you feeling drained due to the absence of self-care. Number 2, you need constant approval from others. Your fear of disapproval causes you to overcompensate, meaning that you go to great lengths to please everyone. Number 1, you're absolutely exhausted from carrying the mental load of trying to please everyone.
Here are 5 things that could have happened in your childhood that may have caused you to become a people pleaser. Number 1, you only received love and affection when you were behaving well. Number 2, you felt responsible for your parents' needs, their emotional health, and/or their reputation. You were pushed to keep going or continue to do something even if you felt miserable. That could have been school, it could have been a sport, it could have been anything in your life that you really didn't want to do, but your parents pushed you to do so anyway. Number 4, you were taught to keep your opinions to yourself. And number 5, you were told or encouraged to stay quiet, even if somebody was imposing on you, somebody was doing something that made you uncomfortable, or somebody said something that you didn't agree with.
I believe that my own sense of worthiness came from, solving and fixing and showing up in the world in a way where I didn't ruffle anybody's feathers in any sort of way. And of course that led to resentment. Of course that led to a state where I felt as if, people were taking advantage of me, etc. And that made me even more jaded than I already was. But at the core of it was this belief that I was not enough, I was not adequate, so long as I was not, being something for somebody else. I couldn't just be something for me, or I couldn't just show up in the relationship being who I was. I had to put on some type of facade, a mask. I had to entertain in some sort of way in order to be acceptable.
Speaking as an ex-people pleaser, the way that I was able to overcome this whole feeling of needing to please others was with this concept here. No matter what I do or how well I try to do it, right? There's always going to be someone out there who doesn't like what I do. They don't agree with what I do. They don't feel like what I do meets their standards, or they feel disappointed in what it is that I do. Unfortunately, imperfection comes with being a human. And so no matter what we try to do, we will always fall short in someone's eyes. That meant that I needed to change the goal, right? Instead of me working so hard to try to please others or do right in their eyes, I needed to make sure that I was pleasing myself and doing right by me. Because in my opinion, the only one that I should be concerned with as to whether or not they are pleased with me outside of myself is God. So to those of you who struggle with people pleasing, I say this to you. Understand you will always be running a race that you may not finish in the eyes of someone else. No matter how great, how well, how often, someone will not be pleased with you. So instead of trying to focus on them, just focus on making sure that you feel good about you.
As a retiring people pleaser, I'm noticing all these little things. And the main one is that you're going to have to reconfigure your speech. I don't know why this popped into my head just now, but I was thinking back to last year when I was working with a student, right? We were playing a game and the prize was $1. So I took $1 out of my bag. I put it on the desk that's in the front. Cool. I turn around, the $1 goes missing. So we start investigating. We figure out, okay, this one student stole the $1. I'm like, all right, I'm going to talk to her dad at the end of the day. So I'm talking to dad. He's Jamaican. You know they don't play. And he's like, okay, tell her sorry. So she goes, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, for what? It's like, I'm sorry for stealing money from you. I'm like, it's okay. He looks at me like, oh, you soft ass. Like, he looking at me like, you too soft. Like, he said, no, he looked me dead in the eyes. He like, no, it's not okay. And he was right. It's not okay. And just now when I was thinking about it, that's when I realized, like, damn, like, every time somebody be like, I'm sorry, I just immediately, it's okay. Like, I don't think nothing. That's like, my brain is just programmed. Once I hear, I'm sorry, it's okay. Another one is that okay with you? Yeah, that's fine. Literally, like, it just, yeah, fine. And I think the way that I'm working through this is kind of like, take a moment, pause. Like, when you hear things that you're familiar to just people pleasing right after, take a second, pause, think about what you really want to say, and say what I really want to say and not what I think the person wants to hear. Especially because if I do that, I'm just servicing myself and them.
Accountability for a recovering people pleaser is realizing that you don't need anyone else's permission to be yourself. It's accepting the fact that narcissists are always going to be narcissists, but that it's your responsibility to decide who you let in and who you trust. Because a lot of times, people pleasers tend to give their all right away. not making the other person work for it, not even feeling out the other person enough before giving away the access. And it can come from a multitude of places. Trauma, which leads to desperation, a keen desire for love because you've never had it, which is trauma, and understanding that that enables certain cycles and patterns in your life can be how you actually break out of the cycle. Recognizing your role in your life provides you with an opportunity for you to be a better you that thinks about you before making a potentially harmful decision that impacts you, which allows you to unapologetically show up for yourself, but with a brain. Because not only do you have to learn how to decenter everyone else from your life, you have to decenter yourself from theirs as well. Thinking that everything that they do and they say is meant for you. Just because you share a moment with someone, that doesn't mean it's your moment. Sometimes that's just something for them to learn. And maybe your learning within that is that maybe you don't need to carry somebody else's burdens. Maybe you don't need to stick around for something to get worse. Maybe you don't need to keep trying things that aren't working because guess what? They're not working. We make a lot of different decisions trying to survive. But if the way that you are trying to survive is not allowing you to thrive, maybe you should let that go before things get worse. Because as scary as loneliness may be, you are not lonely if you're alone. And being alone allows you to learn to trust yourself, which gives you an opportunity to let you know that you don't have to keep trusting everybody right away, no matter what kind of position that you are in. Because it's not just that people prey on loneliness and vulnerability and transparency. It's also, do you really want to deal with this person right now? Do you want to deal with these people? Or is this the time that you really have to tune into you and just deal with you for a while?
People pleasing robs you of your autonomy, the ability to live and decide for yourself. It's like signing over the deed to your life and saying, here, you own this now. So here's how I learned to stop people pleasing. The first thing that I did was become very self-aware and started to recognize my own patterns. I had to ask myself, why do I keep overgiving? Am I afraid to say no? Why do I feel guilty when I put myself first? A lot of us grew up thinking that saying yes is the only way to show love, but love doesn't require you to lose yourself. The second thing, I had to learn to tell my own self no when I felt the urge to overgive more than what was required. And of course, also saying no to others. No isn't a bad word, it's a complete sentence. I had to practice saying it with kindness and firmness to myself so I would stop overgiving. And when people had expectations that I couldn't meet, I would say, I can't do that right now, or that doesn't work for me. And when the guilt comes, and it will, I had to remind myself that protecting my peace is an act of self-love. The third thing was I had to set boundaries. We can't have this conversation without mentioning boundaries. You really have to figure out for yourself where you start and where the other person begins. And you got to think of boundaries like a fence around your garden. They keep the good things in and the bad things out. And the key here is to enforce your boundaries, because if you don't honor your own boundaries, no one else will. I've recommended this book several times on this channel, but you must read the book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Tawwab, because this book will no doubt give you the confidence, the language, and the skill set to set better boundaries without guilt or anxiety. And check out my free tool, the Life Audit Worksheet, which will help you start to evaluate and auditing the friendships and relationships you have in your life and make the necessary adjustments if needed. I will have them both linked for you in the description and in the first pinned comment. And the fourth thing that I had to do to stop people pleasing was pour into myself. I started asking, what do I need today? Maybe it's rest, maybe it's a walk, or maybe it's just 5 minutes of sitting in silence. Whatever it was, I gave it to myself without apology, because I realized when you nurture yourself, you show others how you deserve to be treated. And then the fifth thing that I did was I spent a lot of time alone to reconnect with myself, relearning my desires, and making lists of the qualities that I wanted to cultivate within myself, and getting crystal clear on the qualities that I wanted any future partner to have. So here's my challenge to you. This week, say yes to yourself in a way that feels good to you. Maybe it's finally saying no to something that drains you. Maybe it's setting a boundary with someone who is used to walking all over you. Whatever it is, do it with your head held high and with confidence, because you deserve to be the first in your own life. And when you take your power back, you stop letting people pleasing run your show. That's when you start to win and stop coming in last. Let me know in the comments if you are a recovering people pleaser like me. Are you learning ways to put yourself first and saying no more? Before you go, please subscribe to this channel, like and share this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.